Can a person with a power of attorney, the right of a power of attorney, sell real property? Yes or no? We're covering that and so much more today with Scott. He's going over trusts and probate, and he's using real world examples. One as recent as that happened last week about ways that they are able to go through the probate, go through the trust situation, pitfalls to be aware of, fixes for certain situations. Anyways, it's really interesting. So don't miss this one. Go ahead, scroll ahead if you don't want to see the tell me something goods and all that stuff. These meetings, they are not highly produced, but they are highly effective. Enjoy. Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. The sun has come out. That's beautiful out there.
Texas away from the future.
I was hiding in the back corner. You're hiding in the back corner. All right, everybody, let's kick it off like we normally do. Go ahead online. J-Roll, go ahead, turn your camera on. I see Haley's got her camera on. Everybody, who's Sandra's Otter AI? See Alicia Wright. There's Alicia. All right, let's kick it off like we do every week with Tell Me Something Good. There's a lot of good stuff happening in my world. I hope it's happening in yours as well. Hermes, I know you got something. What's happening tomorrow?
Tomorrow I'm closed.
Boom. All right, who else?
I got something, got depressed because of the rain this last week, and so I brought in some more pink balls.
Yay! That's the benefit of being in person. All right, and so I'm going to flip this over to our ops manager. Look at the camera. All right, now what has Made for More done in the last, our team, what have we done in the last, since Friday?
Since Friday, we have gotten 9 deals into escrow as a team.
Not saying that to impress you, we're saying that to impress upon you. The market is moving, right? If you're working, it works. So anyways, +9 for us. I see Jerry. All right. There is no lender today. Can you believe that? Normally there's like 3 and they're all like flying each other's eyes out.
Very good.
We do, we have a lender?
Yep.
Lender, give us an update. What's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Evan Nunez. I work at American Pacific Mortgage.
American Pacific?
Formerly Finance of America.
Okay.
That team that moved over. So
Yeah, nice.
update is, well, today wasn't that great of a day. So it could completely turn around. We don't know, but the consistency is moving. Rates are starting to go back to the winter where they were, mid to low 7s. So a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago, we had like a big relief, and that relief is pretty much gone. So we're hoping to see by May a turnaround, and that relief.
That's what you lenders were saying in December. Hopefully in February we'll see.
Well, we did. We were right. Relief we did, and we lost it. So hopefully we get it back.
Yeah.
May when the 12-month moving average of inflation starts to fall off.
All right. Well, that's why we start with Tell Me Something Good. All right. What's your contact info, by the way, if anybody wants to reach out to you?
Yeah, my phone number is 916-521-2916.
2916.
And my email address is going to be Nunes, Nunes, @apmortgage.com.
There you go. All right. Thank you for this lender update. All right. So we have tons of events happening in the next. Oh, that's my. Yeah. Peek behind the curtain there. AHA Club. This is happening. This was formerly the Agent Mastermind. We changed it to AHA Club. Agents helping agents.
I love that.
Isn't that fun? So that's happening every Friday in this room, 11 to 12 in person. Chris Okamura is leading that AHA Club. And then next Wednesday, we're doing a call jam. This is available to anybody who wants to join. You don't have to be with EXP. You don't have to be on the Made for More team. Anybody's welcome to come. And what we do is we do a little bit of script training. We hop on the phones, and then everybody that's there from the beginning to end is entered in to win a $100 gift card. So that's call jam. So just for making your calls, you might end up making $100. And we have people setting appointments and getting business out of these. They're calling their spirit, they're calling a lot of great people. And there is a lender on the line. So if you have a fish on the hook, you don't want to let it get away, flip them over to the lender that's on the call. So that's happening next Wednesday. And March 16th. So 2 weeks from today in this room, we will be learning from North American Home Services how to get your clients the best bang for their buck. so many times we get seller credits, right? For our buyers, they move into the home and they don't do anything with it. They don't know what to do. They're not sure what the next steps are. And then you go to sell that house 5-7 years down the road, and the problems that were there, the dry rot, the issues have only gotten worse. It's not a good look for you, and it's not a good look for them. So we're gonna be teaching ways that you can optimize those seller credits. And what is this one? Top producer panel. This is gonna be fun. Barry, you want to speak on this a little bit? Share some things at least that you're going to discuss.
Yeah, so on this panel, we're going to be talking about, a lot of people will be talking about their various backgrounds. My background is working with investors. And so I'll be talking about how do you bring those investors into your orb, and then what are they looking for right now? How do you talk to that investor and get him to take action? And so I think one of the main gifts that I've had over the years is that being able to get people to go from indecision to decision. And the way you do that with an investor is that you have to be able to explain the benefit to them and help them see it. Even when you think they already know how, you have to be able to describe it. And so that's the benefit of going to that top panel.
So that's so Barry will be touching on that. Val Turner, she sells, I don't know, 80 to 100 homes a year. She'll be speaking, and we got some people that are also agents.
Let me ask a quick question real
Yeah.
quick. Using you as a round robin, would you also be interested in knowing how to find investors? Is that as important as what I just said?
Yeah,
Find them?
yeah. Because sometimes you come across a deal and you're like, well, what do I do? Who do I send this to?
I'll try to work and add that in too.
Yeah.
Maybe
Dude,
shift it.
you've been smoking too many cigars. Like, you all right?
Yeah, you know those cowgirls do it till your time.
Oh God. All right, we got Mr. Gove there, and then the fundraising event that's taking place with Leukemia and Lymphoma Society is ongoing. Remember, we want to raise as much money as possible. This ends May 5th. So I know Madison has volunteered to be a part of this. Anybody's welcome. Our goal is just to raise as much money as possible. Speaking of raising money, I think you got something you want to speak on, Eric?
Yeah, so some of you may know Christy Painter, who's one of our team members. And I don't know how long it was, but she had a stroke. And then recently she had a brain bleed. And so she is not able to work, and she's commission only, and is really struggling paying her bills right now. And so I'm helping her. We created a GoFundMe. And so if any of you would be willing to kick in $20 or $30 or even more, if you have if you're in a financial place to do so, or if you want to reach out directly to Christy just to connect with her and give her some encouragement. My cell phone is the bottom one, Scott's is the top one. So you can just send me a text. I can send you the link. And so it's just one of our team members that needs help. And so I just encourage you to help if any of you are able to do that.
Yeah. When you have nothing, 20 bucks goes a long way. So don't think just, hey, just because I can't give front go money, it's not going to have an impact. 945, is that fine?
It's 1945. Yeah.
945. So if you'd like to learn more about the GoFundMe page, just go ahead and text Eric. Yeah. All right. So, I don't want to click that button. Do not click that. I almost ended the whole meeting, y'all. Trying to close things out. So we have a special guest speaker. Let me share the screen again. And we'll just kick it off with so today's topic is not the most riveting. We're not talking about shiny objects. We're not talking about leads. We're not talking about investors, but we are talking about something that we all will run into if we haven't run into already in our businesses, and that is how to work with trust and probates. So with that, Mr. Scott, mind coming to the front of the stage, front of the room? Give him a round of applause, everybody.
Okay, so at the end of that, you want to plug. It's like you gave it up too soon, I'm sure. All right, so thank you, EXP, for having us here. Really appreciate it. I was just kind of opining on how many presentations I've done on this subject. And by the way, it's the #1 subject that I do, probably 1,000 over the last 7 years. And that's not a lie. I was doing 2, 3, 4 days a week before COVID, traveling from Salinas to Santa Rosa, doing exactly this. And what's interesting about it, the reason it's the top topic, because I get hit every day with something new, right? So I could tell a horror story from a year ago and it would still be true, but I've got something even more recent. So let's start off with a couple of things. Let's start off with a trust, right? Well, what is a trust? Anybody? Anybody? What's a trust?
A vehicle that conveys property across some type of a legal boundary.
I like that. That's a really good way to go with it. I'm going to put it more in layman's terms.
Recording in progress.
A trust is a probate done soup to nuts before you die, right? So you can avoid probate. Can a trust be challenged? Obviously, you're very well educated on this. A trust can be challenged, so it's not ironclad, but it's a great template. All right, so let me give you some issues that we run into. And I'm going to start off with the first horror story. You know, it's funny. Let me back up a little bit. My name is Scott Heisey with Stewart Title Company. I'm an underwriter with Stewart. I've been in the business 39 years. My cell number is over there, but if you can't see that, my cell number is 408-489-5288. You can call me directly at any time with any question on any subject. Not just this. I specialize in fixing broken deals. If there's a transaction that's gone sideways because of some issue, I work on it as a free second opinion. And you people here, if you went to the doctor and somebody gave you a prognosis saying, hey, why don't you you're going to die in the next 6 hours, just go home and have a glass of wine. Would you not seek a separate second opinion? Of course you would, right? So let me be that second opinion if you run into a problem. All right, so let's go on to a trust. All right, how many people here have children? Show of hands. So multiple children. I'm going to ask, this is going to be a horrible question. Who do you love the most? All right, keep your hands up for a second. Who loves a child more than another? Yeah, see the hands are. All right, second part is, so do you have a child that you like more than another? Let's be honest, right? And I've got 3 boys. I do have a favorite. And I tell them, well, separately, I tell the kid who I like the most, hey, I like you the most. Don't tell your brothers. And then I tell the brothers the same thing. So at Christmas, I get a lot of great stuff because they're all vying for this. And then mom's all, why don't I get good stuff? I said, because you're not playing the game correctly. All right. But let's be real. Let's really drill it down. Multiple children. You love them the same. You might like one more than the other, but who do you trust? Right? That's the kicker here. So if you're setting up a trust, you have to be pragmatic about it. My wife and I are just finished setting up our trust. And again, we got 3 boys. I love them both dearly. So, oh, okay, somebody picked up.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the deal is, who did we pick to be the first successor trustee if something happened to us? And we had to drill down on that. And by the way, we did call all 3 of them and say, this is what we're doing. And this is why we picked one brother over another. And it was really geographically based because the other 2 lived too far away to actually be of any use. But so we created that trickle down. Did you have a question?
I was just agreeing.
Oh, thank you. So what happens here is that if you're setting up a trust, be pragmatic about it. Now, how does that affect us in a real estate transaction, right? I'm going to give you guys an example here, true story of something that happened. And unfortunately for the people watching online, they can't quite see how we're going to set this up. But I'm going to use Debbie, and what's your name? You, yes. Young, no, not her, the young lady right here. Valerie. She's like, don't pick on me. All right, so Valerie, Debbie and Valerie are 2 sisters. Okay, and John, you're going to be dad in this situation.
All right.
All right.
Doesn't make it weird at all. That's my wife. Yeah.
So we just went from we went from Roosevelt to West Virginia very
Yeah.
quickly. All right.
It ain't good enough for family.
All right, so all right, so Debbie and Valerie, Johnny's your dad. All right, true story. Prelim comes out. Now, how many people here read the prelim hot off the press, guys? Right as it comes out. Why are not all hands going up at this point? Okay. All right, because there's indicators on everything, right? So the prelim comes out, the vesting is Johnny of the Johnny Trust, right? Johnny Jennings, right? Johnny Jennings of the Johnny Jennings Family Trust, dated, true story, 1984. What does that tell you?
Johnny's old.
Johnny's old. Somebody picked up on that really quick, right? By seeing the date of that trust, we get an idea of how old Johnny is. So in present times, right, we're already going, well, is Johnny dead? Is Johnny incapacitated? Immediately, these questions should be coming into play. Second part of it is that if you're getting a listing agreement and that prelim comes out, it says Johnny Jennings, the Johnny Jennings 1984 trust, but you didn't talk to Johnny Jennings directly, that's a red flag. Because it's vested in his name, in an old trust, right? So who's representing Johnny in this case? His two daughters, his daughter wife. So in this case.
Strange statement.
So, yeah, I thought it was.
And we just left South Sac and went to Tennessee.
Yeah, there we go. So how does the community property law work in that situation, right?
Yeah.
So let's work that out. Anyway, so you guys are representing the Johnny Trust, right? All right, so what do? We ask for a copy of that trust so we can review what's going on. Not just a copy of the trust, but all amendments to that trust. From 1984 trust, you would think there'd be several amendments. Well, what did we get to review? An amendment that was executed 45 days before the transaction was opened, right? And what did the sole purpose of that amendment was to empower your two daughters and wife into a position of control. All it did was substitute out a trustee, an unnamed trustee, by the way, and put you to, and then immediately, who wants to be the real estate agent here? You get a free sale on it. All right. I'm sorry, your name?
Very.
Barry, you're the listing agent. So they come to you to sell it, right? Present this amendment to you. You have no reason to believe it's fraud, forgery, invalid in any way, shape, or form. But I review it and go, great. Recent trust, recent power, selling the property. The property Johnny bought in 1984 when he set up his trust. He bought it for $200,000. This is Bay Area property, San Jose, now worth $2.2 million free and clear. That's kind of a motivator to sell the property all cash. Still have no contact with you. I don't know what your situation is. So I ask the girls, what's wrong with Johnny? Why can't he act? Well, Johnny's incapacitated. Really? How did he execute this amendment 45 days ago? Because we know incapacity does not come on slowly. I mean, it does come on slowly, it doesn't come on rapidly. So if he was okay 45 days ago, why can't he act today? Yes, sir.
Isn't the first question, when was Johnny incapacitated? That'll tell you.
We are getting there, but his two daughters are not cooperating, which is another red flag. Right? Because again, the only evidence we have is something that gave them immediate control, and now they've listed the property to sell. Push, 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 push. Red flags flying everywhere. I still don't know what your capacity is, or if you are alive. So keep in mind that every time I'd ask a question of the daughters, 7 days would go before they would respond. Right? So the buyer's like, this should have been a 30-day close. We're now 45 days out, and I'm no closer to closing than I was before. So we draw a line in the sand because they're being evasive. Okay, pony up the trust. Tell me why Johnny's incapacitated and can't act, right? And I need a letter from the doctor. So you guys are scrambling because you know you've been found out. So when you capitulated, I got to talk to the doctor and get a letter. And the doctor's been managing your health care and your incapacity and dementia for more than 5 years. That's huge. What's that do to our amendment to the trust? What's that do to them signing a contract to sell the property? Gone, void, right? So it was interesting. Who drew the amendment? An attorney. Are there any attorneys in the room? Okay, cover yours for a second. We cannot trust all attorneys to do the right thing. Okay.
What?
Because they took mom in and the attorney drew that and had, not mom, sorry, it was mom in this case, but Johnny signed the documents, right? Clearly incapacitated, right? According to the doctors though. So we don't have a transaction. It's now fallen apart. So you guys eventually gave me the full trust, which I reviewed. They had an older brother who is actually the first successor trustee. Dun, 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 right? So look him up. I call him. He lives in Arizona. This property again, Bay Area, right? You live in Arizona. I said, your sisters are selling your dad's property. What? They're doing what? Big issue there, right? So what do you think happened to that transaction? Barry, did you get to sell that property?
No, I did not. I didn't get it. I had to change title companies, get somebody that didn't look at it.
Oh. Wow, so I didn't get that one done. Disclosure issues, and how was that? I'll give you some ethical ones, right?
Lexi, I'm glad you're out of the room.
All right, so Barry, I want you to take down my phone. Why? I closed that deal. I took a broken
brother.
deal
Yeah.
and revamped it. Right now, what's really funny is that the transaction had been rejected by another title company before. I won't tell you their name, but their initials are FATCO. Batco, First American. Okay, so anyway, so they wouldn't do it because they didn't dig in, right? And again, I don't know how many of you have ever talked to an underwriter or a title company. Probably none. There's my cell phone number.
I'm sorry it's off topic, but how do I find somebody that can declare, I've got a client that I think is incapacitated now. And I've got people asking me to have him sign further documents and I think he's gone.
Is he in a trust?
No, he has no one in his life. How do I get somebody basically to declare and act on his behalf? They need to declare an incapacity, then act on his behalf.
Does he have a doctor? If he's got a doctor, is he elderly?
Yes,
Okay, then he probably has a doctor that he sees on a semi-regular basis.
okay.
Get the doctor to determine it in writing. And they may say something along the lines of, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but this is, no, it's all good. What it is that they might say he's suffering from, say, sundowner syndrome, right? So he's good in the morning, but later in the afternoon, he's not. So this is where if we can get them early in the morning where they're lucid, have them sign a power of attorney or durable power of attorney, appointing somebody to act for them. But you said he has no one. So who does he appoint? Right? That
He does have a close friend and he does have a sister, but she's not here, so we might get something done.
Yeah, so you may have to go the conservatorship route, have somebody represent him,
Okay.
right? That way you're shielded.
I gotta
he's
get
taken
over
care of.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
So we can talk about that as it evolves. Give me a call. I'll work with you on that sort of situation. By the way, if you have troubles closing transactions at other title companies, Fidelity,
Oh, shots fired. Oh my gosh, I'm not wearing my bulletproof vest today.
give me a call, because like I said, I'm free second opinion. I do have a lot of attorneys in different geographic regions that I work directly with on issues like this, saying, hey, let's get your advice on that. They owe me favors. I work with them because I've been doing this a long time, and this has become kind of my specialty. So let's jump back into it. So what do? I call the son and tell him what his sisters are doing. And of course, he explodes. Now, why did the sisters try to circumvent the brother? Anybody?
Money.
Money. See, money. She said money. But I can tell you, well, it's always about money. $2.2 million in cash in this case, right?
Because they want to get your Christmas gift.
There you go. So, but in reality, and this is what I find out 9 times out of 10, guys, it's family problems. How many people have brothers and sisters here? You get along with them all the time?
No.
Let me give you another thing. Brothers and sisters that get along great, mom and dad die, the claws come out, right? They could be absolutely perfect, and then suddenly they're going to fight over a cookie jar until they die, right? And that's actually a true story. There was a cookie jar situation that I had where they would not budge unless the cookie jar was resolved. All right, so I can mediate those things also. So in this case, talk to you, said, okay, what are we going to do? Property's in a trust, dad's in a trust. Right? We need to make sure dad is taken care of in our transaction. I'm going to give you a punchline at the end of this, but said, will you ratify a new contract through Barry to our buyer, right? To the buyer's agent, buyer, whole 9 yards. We circumvent the 2 criminal daughters out of the thing. Again, it really wasn't criminal. It was the dad always liked you best syndrome. And by the way, there's demographically, people who the baby boomers would, and their parents would automatically appoint usually the elder son or the first son to be in charge of everything. Everything. So if you were setting up a trust, or if you have a trust, do some reflection and put the appropriate person in charge for the right reasons, right? So in this case, daughters took care of dad, right? Daily, right? Took care of food, clothing, medication, lived with one of the daughters, whole 9 yards, right? The son lived out of state, but still got to drive all the bus, right? Which made them angry. So they circumvented you out of anger, not out of greed. So I got them all on the phone at the same time and got to hear all the battle, but the end result was, who here does not have dad's best interest at heart. Well, no one's going to say, I want him to steal $2.2 million. So they capitulated to you. We got it done, closed the deal. How did we also do that? We communicated with the buyer's agent saying, we are close to a resolution. We will get this done. All right. So took a broken transaction, revamped it, fixed it. Right. As opposed to, sorry, can't do it. And then Barry's shop and title companies go, can you do this? Can you do this? So keep that in mind. Any questions? Did I scare everybody here going, oh my God, we run into that? Okay, good. So that's a trust issue. Let me give you, yes, sir.
My wife and I are thinking about doing that trust ourselves. When is a good time? How much? Sometimes when we look at each other and say, we just don't have enough to do a trust. We've got a will, but
Yeah, so, all right, so let's,
I know that's general.
no, absolutely. What's very interesting is that, and again, I've run into this, I've got some other horror stories here, but this is one, and you really tapped into it. I've had a situation where children automatically think that since my parents have a will, it's actionable, right? My parents died, they have a will, they left the property to me. I keep looking at Debbie like, yeah, sorry, Debbie, you're the person here. Your parents died, you're the only child, they left the property to you in the will, right? So you're like, great, parents are dead, I'll get an agent, we'll sell the property, right? Unless the agent is educated enough, I've had this happen, the agent went, great, contract, go, 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 go. The property was vested in parents, husband and wife as joint tenants. They're both dead, but of record, they're alive. So what do? We process the transaction, get to the end. Daughter shows up to sign. The escrow officer goes, where's Bob and Nancy? Oh, there's my parents. They died 10 years ago. The 11th hour. So who gets the call? I get the call and they go, we've got a broken transaction and everybody's mad at the title company. All right. It's not the title company's fault. And I've had agents say, didn't you know they were dead? And I asked them back, did you know they were dead? Right? No, unless it's of record, we do not know that. That's why if you read the prelim right off the bat, and that vesting in there is not who you're dealing with, ask the questions. And here's the question. Who are you? How are you related to the owner of this property? And under what authority can you act? Is that through a trust? Right? Is that through power of attorney? Are the parents dead? Are you the successor in interest to that property? And can you be empowered through a probate to sell the property? But all of these take time and steps. And when does the underwriter or title officer find out about it? The day before close. That's why everybody gets my number. So when you pick up a bad transaction or a gnarly deal, call me ahead of time so we can sculpt it to go through the process clearly. Okay, so back to your question. So you filled out a will, fantastic, right? When you set up a trust, the attorney has you fill out a will, which is a list of things that you want to do. It's your wish list, right? So then they take that template and build it into a trust. Do you own real property?
Yeah.
Okay, if you own real property, you need a trust, even a simple trust, to avoid probate, right? Because if you don't do that, your will goes to probate. And then if you have more than one child, you know, again, they get on great until they hit that probate mark and then all hell breaks loose, right? So you set up a trust that tends to get rid of a lot of that. I'm so sorry, guys. I thought I shut that off. So I would suggest you do that. If you need a reference to really good attorneys locally here, let me know. I got some good ones. I recently did a speaking engagement in that really cool restaurant back over here. La
Provence.
Thank you for the Placer County estate planning attorney. So I was their keynote speaker there and got to meet a lot of fantastic people. So I can help you out if you need. Okay. Any other questions? All right, let's jump into, I'm going to give you another horror story. This one's true. Actually, they're all true. Transaction was selling, right? And this is a probate issue, but it's very complicated. So a trust avoids a lot of probate issues. This was a probate issue. It was family property in Tahoe. It was owned in a family for years. And of course, it was a brother, two brothers who owned the property. And then when they died, it went down to their children. And then when they wanted it, kept splitting out, right? So I had 3 trusts and then one husband and wife entitled each has the 25% interest, right? And Carolyn, you're going to be the buyer in this case, which happened to be the niece of all these people combined. They wanted to sell the Tahoe property. She's like, right on, I'm taking that. I grew up there, I went there every summer. This is great. I'm gonna bring my kids there. It was fantastic. Okay, so we go to sign off, right? We have 3 trusts, and then Dave and Mary, husband and wife who's joint tenants. Who doesn't show up to the sign off? Dave and Mary. Why? Dave's dead. He was married to Mary. They divorced in 1996. This transaction was last month, and no one, including the buyer, who Dave was her uncle, said, "Oh, they're dead and they're divorced." They let it go down to the wire, and both sides were represented by real estate. So how can no one know this stuff? So it gets down to this wire. What do we do with the transaction like that, right? Because 25% is owned by dead Dave and his wife who's divorced. So, oh, by the way, Dave had remarried after that and had another wife who was still alive. All right, so I'm like, you have to probate Dave, right? Assuming he gets the property, but joint tenancy rule is right of survivorship. When he died, the ex-wife gets the property, but he's got a new wife who's going, I get 25% of the proceeds of the sale. So guess who gets to tell her? No, his ex-wife gets the 25% of the proceeds from the sale.
You. Because you're working for this person.
I am. So I got everybody on a conference call, right? Including the niece. Said, okay, give me the layout here. What's going on? Pretty soon I'm getting divorce decrees and all this stuff. And what was fantastic about it is that the ex-wife, who could have been very bad at this, went, nah, it doesn't belong to me. That was actually Dave's family's property. She was pragmatic about it, thank God. And so to avoid probate, we did affidavit of death of joint tenant for Dave. Property went to Mary, even though they're divorced, but of record, that's the way it worked, right? Mary puts in a demand into escrow, and then they created between Mary and, let's say, Nancy, new wife, right? An agreement that the proceeds would pass through her. And so she basically cut her a check, she cashed the check, gave it, and we orchestrated that transaction at the last second. But what was interesting was that everybody knew Dave had been dead since the 90s, and nobody ponies it up. So we run into that. So these are all things, again, super important. Read the prelim. If there's multiple people on there, start asking questions. Who are they? Are they still alive? Right? Especially if somebody says, hey, this property's been in my family for generations, something's going to be broken. So let's get ahead of it at the very beginning and make those phone calls. Pull me into a conference call so I can ask those questions and drill down very quickly. Because if you guys are the conduit, it's like telephone tag, right? The story changes. If I tell you something, by the time I got to Johnny here, it'd be like, I'd be saying, hey, let's go to the Niners game. And he's like, I hate the Raiders, what's going on? So that's the way it works. Raider fans in here? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's one of those stories. I've got another one here. This one, again, things to watch out for. And by the way, by virtue of my phone ringing or I get an email, no one contacts me unless there's a problem, right? No one just calls me and says, hey, how's it going? I don't need you today, right? What I get is problem. And it was funny, it's because talking in front of a room full of attorneys, I said, that's the same for you, right? When your phone rings, people don't call you and say, I don't have a legal problem. I just want to say hi. All right. So when my phone rings, it's a problem. So you take it like a Rubik's Cube and you work it. All right. So here's a true story. Sale. Husband and wife is joint tenants. Young couple. Where's he? Do you have a young couple in here?
I don't know. 10 years ago, we were dealing with.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sorry. All right. So it's a young couple. Properties for sale. Right. Going smooth. I get a call from the escrow officer. Let's say it's Debbie in this case. She calls me, Scott, I got a little bit of a problem. The husband and wife are going through divorce. I said, okay. And I said, did they file? Are they already filed or are they through it? Whatever. She goes, no, they filed their case. They didn't really have enough money to get an attorney, so they're working together on this. I'm like, great, cohesive, right? Yeah, what did they say? Oxymoron is a happy divorce type of thing. All right. So in this case is that I said, great, let me see the paperwork. So they sent me the paperwork, they filed their case. They split out their assets, right? But they're entitled as joint tenants. Joint tenants is inherently 50-50, right? You and I are joint tenants, right? I die, you get it, you die, I get it. But if we sell it, it's a 50-50 thing.
Mhm.
In the divorce situation, it set out that he was to get $40,000 from the proceeds of the sale of the property, which was well below 50-50. Okay, so now they've segregated it out and broke it down into another thing to where they've in essence polluted the joint tenancy rule here, right? And you're probably wondering, why is joint tenants important here? Well, a week later, I get another phone call. Hey, Scott, do you remember that couple that were in the middle of the divorce? Yeah, husband's dead. Let that sink in a little bit. I know what you're thinking right there. I know what you're thinking. Do not say it out loud. Let everybody else catch up. Okay. All right. Yes, we all thought it. That did she kill him? Right.
Was he really dead?
He's dead.
Oh, he's really
He
dead.
is
Okay.
dead. So I'm like, okay. Yeah, there was. So here's the kicker. Everybody's like, well, they're joint tenants. Let's just establish this death and transfer property to the wife. And I said, time out. But they filed for divorce. And they split out their assets in a manner that was less than 50-50 anyway. So what is the rule of law? Actually, I'll ask you, what do you think that rule of law should be? Even though this may not be your expertise, by the way.
So if there's not a court order, it would still be joint tenancy, with right of survivorship. Is that what you're asking?
Potentially, yeah. See, that was the argument, but then their wishes were already laid out in a court case that hadn't been finalized. So there was an issue. The other issue is that when we got a copy of the death certificate, cause of death stated pending investigation. So, any of you here who are thinking of killing your spouse, you cannot do it through joint tenancy and then get automatic right of survivorship and then sell the property and move on.
It's been a
Right.
trust first.
What's that?
It's been a trust first.
Kinda.
Yeah.
So here we have, we said we're back. So here you go, right? It's like, all right, we can't really go forward because if she did murder her husband, we can't help facilitate the sale of the property and give her the proceeds from it. We have to stop because we have to establish the valid death. And then what happens after that? What's that?
Isn't that always why he dies?
Well, probably, right? Either that or it was his only way out of the marriage. I'm not sure. Anyway, sorry, yes.
And that will with inheritance as well, if you kill the person who's
You
supposed to.
cannot inherit. It's the same rule, essentially, right? Just under different circumstances, but I think it falls back to that. So what's really interesting, so we're like, okay, we've got this mystery. How do we deal with this thing, right? So everybody's hitting me up. I'm like, we got to probate him, right? I cannot rely upon the rule of joint tenancy because back to what if she did kill him? She can't benefit from it, right? So what it is we segregated him out. Dad took and filed a probate case. Now, what was very great about this is that there wasn't much. They only owned that one property. They were a young couple, so there was a lot of stuff to probate. So boom, what did we go after? An emergency order to sell the property. Keep this thing moving forward. The circumstances of his death then become irrelevant to what we're doing, right? The goal is close the deal. I hate to say it that way. It's like we're just,
I still get a commission.
there you go. There you go, Barry. Paying commission.
I'm doing more business in this meeting than I've done all year.
Right. So what's really great about that is that if you do encounter a probate, this is kind of a rule of thumb. Do not think that we have to go all the way through a probate to sell that property. In particular, if there's kids involved in conflict, right? What they need to fight over are the proceeds, not the house itself, right? So what we have to do, thing is, a lot of times attorneys or people are not thinking, well, can I circumvent this process to get it done quicker? And you can just get the emergency order to sell it, right? We get that. The proceeds from sale will go into the probate case, be held until they finalize that, right? So this is what we did. We got that done. We still had to figure out at some point how he died, because again, can we hand her half of the proceeds from the sale of the house? It's funny, I keep looking at you girls back there like you're just criminals the whole time, right? But in this case, right, how do we deal with that? So we kept pushing, got the emergency order. At the same time, cause of death, revised death certificate comes out, boom. We're like, okay, how did he die? Well, he died from an overdose. He OD'd. So here we go. Here we go. It's in the orange juice, right? But what happened is that when I started talking to people, I got the full story. Husband and wife were married, everything was great. He had surgery, right? When he was healing from the surgery, they gave him OxyContin. He became addicted to the OxyContin, destroyed the marriage, pushed towards the sale of the property, OD'd in the middle of the transaction. Okay, so that was the circumstances of this, but we got it done, right? It's just using our expertise along with your expertise to come up with the way to cure the issue, right? And push it forward. Because what's our goal when we get a transaction? Close the deal. A lot of people think, I did a presentation one time and the rep said, and this is Scott, our underwriter in the back, somebody said, you mean your undertaker? And I went, oh, okay. And you know what? It was accurate because historically we are deal killers. I got to call my underwriter. There it goes, right? Here to change that, right? And by educating, right? If we get ahead of the problem, we can fix it quicker. If it's broken at the end of the transaction, we can still potentially fix it, but everybody has to be patient about that. So instead of the undertaker, I want to be the fixer in this room. Okay, so let's jump up a little bit. So we already went through what is probate. I love this. We should talk about our final arrangements so the kids aren't burdened with it. Why should we talk about that'll be their problem? That's a lot of parents like, I'm dead, what do I care? Right? And of course the wife, right? Well, at least we talked about it. So that was the extent of the conversation. And it's funny, again, I've been doing this almost 40 years. I am now just setting up my trust, and I've got 3 boys, 2 of which I love. So when we think of it that way, why did I wait so long? I work with attorneys all the time.
Yeah.
Right? I see this every
Maybe
day.
it costs $3,000 or $2,000 and you just never had an extra $3,000.
That's absolutely true.
If the attorneys put it on a payment plan, they'll get it done a lot sooner.
Yeah, I should be working on your side of the fence because I'm entitled and I'm still work at Starbucks on the side. So, yeah.
Excuse me, first, can you send that to my wife? Second, you're not actually asking anybody in this room to read the title report without you on the phone, are you?
Well, let's put it this way. Yes, I am. Right? Read it. If you don't understand it, then call me. If you have questions, then call me. If that vesting is something other than the person who contacted you to sell that property, call me. You would be amazed at the access I have to things just from my little desktop.
And I think the part that freaks agents out about prelim is once you've read a few, you'll understand that the last 20 pages are always the same.
Yep.
So when you're a title company, it's just the first couple of pages that talk about that vesting that really is what you have to pay attention to. You don't have to read all 50 pages, but those first where it talks about the vesting.
I absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. You know, there are bullet points, and it's actually, we do a class on how to read a prelim for new agents, and a lot of it's that hit this, the bullet points on that sort of thing. So that's great. Call your escrow officer. Well, it's funny is that I hear a lot of agents go, I rely on my escrow officer to do that. Well, if she's juggling 30, 40, 50 orders, where do you think that priority is going to fall? Right? It's all of our collective responsibilities to make transactions happen. And why do we go so deeply into curing issues? Well, I can tell you, Johnny, let's say you're my buyer here, and my policy specifically on its face says, I cover you for fraud, forgery, incapacity of the seller, and voidability of contract, right? That's the title company taking that right on the nose. So I have to vet this. We deal with a lot of elder abuse, right? And it's very interesting. So I do a whole presentation on elder abuse, but statistically, this is going to be horrible. How many people have both sons and daughters? Okay. If you're setting up your trust, let's just statistically put your daughter in charge. Okay. Statistically, sons are more apt to commit fraud or forgery against their parents or elders than daughters. So it goes sons, daughters, nieces, nephews, and care workers. That's the order those things go in, right? And yeah.
Unless you have a boy and 2 girls.
It's kind of funny, if you have twins, it's gonna be tough, right? I've got identical twins, who do I pick? Like, they look the same, just
When you like better.
Timmy and Tommy, right? Type of thing. No, what do you like better? See, again, you tell them both the same thing, have them work against each other. All right, so this is another one. Will versus not will, right? According to this, the Cheshire Cat gets everything. And that's the Lucy Carroll type of thing. What's very interesting is that if you have a will, you go to probate. If you don't have a will, you go to probate. So either way, you're probating. The will is the template to get you through that probate process quicker. But again, if you set up a will and you've got 2, 3, 4 children, expect the battle to ensue post-death, which is where we fall into that. And again, it's like, all right, what are you guys fighting over? If it's the cookie jar, work it out, right? Don't hold up the sale of the house over the cookie jar. Get the emergency order. I'll get you an attorney to set it up. Boom, 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 right? Close the deal. Let's just keep going. What you got here? Determined process involves. Okay, let's skip that. I'm going to talk about powers of attorney real quick because I'm getting a lot of that. Again, either people travel or the elderly, if they become incapacitated, a durable power of attorney is typically the situation. If somebody is dealing with a power of attorney, let's say I'm elderly, Johnny, I've issued you a power of attorney to take care of my things, right? And I pass away, can he still use the power of attorney?
No.
No. You know how many times I get that? I've got a power of attorney. My parents died 5 years ago, but I've got a power of attorney.
Means nothing whatsoever.
It terminates at that point. The other part is that can a power of attorney, so you have the power of attorney and you're my only child, right? Can you use that power of attorney to deed the property from me to you?
Well, I guess no.
No. Self-serving power of attorneys don't work, even if it's logical, right? So again, dad, 1 child, nobody else is in line. You can't use it to deed the property to yourself. Give me an example of something that happened. Again, this is a cultural thing a lot of times where elderly dad had 3 daughters. He gave power of attorney to his oldest daughter. Debbie, you're going to be my oldest daughter in this case, and my 2 younger daughters over here. All right. So, which is funny is that we're not married, so it's okay this time. Okay. So really, I thought that'd be funnier, guys. All right. So power of attorney, right? You take care of me, and collectively, you all take care of me, right? Oldest daughter, and that goes down the line. Absolutely logical. So now I am slipping. You're like, oh my God, dad's going to have to go through probate, right? What's going to happen when dad dies? So what do? You deed the property from me to the 3 of you to avoid probate, because through probate, it would have gone to you 3 anyway. Logic, right? Makes absolute logic. But that conveyance failed only in one manner, right? Because if she conveys it, it's a third, a third, and a third. Well, guess who didn't really get a third out of that? The daughter who used the power of attorney to convey it. So now I've got 2/3 of interest that actually did work, but the portion that went to you is now void. So I die 5 years later. This is a true story. 5 years later, you guys go, it's time to sell the house. Great. Go to sell the house. It's vested in all 3 of your names, by the way, because the county recorder does not look at documents for their validity, only that they can be recorded. But if they're void or fraudulent, they don't know, they don't catch it, they don't search the title. So we caught it that you executed that deed, which you thought you could via power of attorney, and I had to go, it's void. The transfer to you is void. So we had to probate me as to 1/3 interest at the 11th hour. So these are the things we have to watch out for, right? Education. Hey, you can use a power of attorney, but not for self-serving purposes. Okay. You convey property using a power of attorney, but not for yourself. You know how we could have legitimized that? Let's say she did it 10 times. I go, oh, Debbie, guess what? Deed the property to your sisters, then have your sisters deed to all 3 of you. Now we've legitimized that transfer. Okay. So there are workarounds for that we can do. Let's say I'm in a trust, right? I've got you 3 guys at the back. I've got 3 sons, right? My trust says, I run into this all the time. Hey, when I die, all 3 of you share these assets collectively, a third, a third, and a third. Great, but you're the only one who wants the property, and they don't want the property. They already moved away. How do we make them whole and you get the property? Well, the law says the successor trustee conveys to all three of you, then you work it out. But the way the taxes, if you do it that way, everything is reassessed in a certain manner, right? So what do you do within yourselves, right? And I'm gonna give you the punchline. You guys don't trust him. You know, he wants the property. He's gonna buy you guys out. So you execute, well, this is gonna be online too. All right, so you do 2 notes as to your interest in the property. Let's say it's worth 300K. You have them sign each one of a note for $100,000 each, right? You don't record it, conveys it out of the trust via successor trustee to you, right? Now you gotta go refi the property, assuming it's free and clear, refi the property and then buy them out. Essentially off record, right? That way you can keep that tax base down. These are what attorneys do, not good ones, mind you, but this is what attorneys do. I'm sorry. So you had a question.
Yeah, the question was with these 3 people, the person, this trusted deeds to the 2 sisters,
Mhm.
and then what keeps those 2 sisters at that point from becoming and running?
That is absolutely a reality. They could do that. Right. So again, there's a lot of times there's a trust factor here, in particular, coming out of a trust situation. I hate to use trust over and over again, but the scenario that I just spelled out to the 3 guys, right? If they don't get along, but they don't want the property and they don't want the hassle with it, he's like, I'm down. I want to take this property. Maybe you didn't even move out, right? You're still there, right? How do we work it out so there is no cutting and running? Well, that's how we have these 2 guys basically have an executed contract. So if he does cut and run, he's violating a contract type of situation. Or if you guys have him execute a note and deed of trust, if he tries to cut and run, boom, you record those things, you've now nailed your interest onto the property and held him hostage, right? So there's ways to do this. And again, when you guys, as you're going forward, and there's a bell curve to this, by the way, over the last 10 years, people are living longer, right? My dad's 92, and I just went out, he lives in Arizona with my stepmother. They've been married for 58 years, right? And he's sharp as a tack. It blows me away. I keep waiting for that slip, right? So fantastic, good for him. Now, my grandparents, my dad's parents died of old age in their 60s, right? So we're seeing this. Well, since we're seeing people live longer, what do we get to see more of now? Incapacity, Alzheimer's, dementia, elder abuse, because they're living longer, right? Generally, the baby boomers did better than their parents, generally. So therefore, that's why we have sons attacking estates more than anybody else, right? Son didn't do as good as the parents, so therefore, they're trying to tap into that situation. So this is the reality of it. This is the curve I see. Why? Because my phone rings all the time. It's always with a problem. But when I see a consistent problem constantly coming up, it becomes a trend. And that's why I'm here. Yeah.
Online, Robin was asking, when one person can't be found, how long does it hold up the sale?
Oh, wow. That's a really good one. Again, if they are just MIA and not determined dead, then you basically have to go into maybe a quiet title action, right? So a quiet title action would be, hey, this person's gone. That could be a 6-month process, by the way. And that generally is determined by how long it takes to get court dates, right? And since COVID, the courts are now more clogged than ever based on these probate type things because so many people died, right? Or we fall into court issues based on incapacity and dementia. Again, more people are falling under that thing, so the courts have more to have to deal with. So back to that question, let's look at it as quiet title, a little separate, right? Have the people who are trying to sell the property, quiet title it to have that person removed. Or if they assume they're dead, open up a probate type of situation to then set aside, unfortunately, they're gonna have to set aside those proceeds from the sale to that person to be determined at a later date. But don't hesitate, always contact an attorney, contact me, we'll set it up. I've run into that a few times. Many times title companies go, I just don't want the deal. It's all doable. It's just how much time do you want to spend on it, right? Or how much money will it take to cure something? And actually based on that question, I'm looking at the camera now, like I'm looking at her online. But we've had situations where property, remote property, Siskiyou County type stuff, where let's say it was I owned it, I died and it went to you guys. Right, the value of the property was so low that to probate any issues cost more than the value of the property itself. and that becomes an issue, right? And I had that transaction where the real estate agent was like, hey, we got this. We had literally like 1/10 interest that we could not rectify. And I said, well, that's got to go through court. Well, that 1/10 interest was only worth about $4,000. The cost to deal with that interest was going to be $10,000. And none of the other people wanted to deal with it. So what do we do with the transaction like that? Well, we may have to let that one go, right? Everybody has to cooperate to get it going forward. We just got about another minute or two. Any final questions?
Haley, are you still online? Did you have a question? Come off mute.
I mean, Scott, is it an overstatement to say a trust prevents?
90% of this. Absolutely. That's why it literally, you said, should we get a trust type of thing? You should, at your earliest convenience, when it's absolutely possible, right? Yeah, if you own real property and have children, right, that you love, let's put it that way, set up a trust, right? If you don't care and they're ne'er-do-wells and you don't care what happens, don't worry about it, you're dead, so what do you care, right? But setting up those dominoes so they fall in a place that people won't have to juggle them later is really prudent. And by the way, I mean, you all have clients, you all have friends, talk to them about this stuff, right? Because eventually those friends and family will become clients. And then you're like, why didn't you take care of this stuff 6 years ago? Right? And again, I've got a database of people who can help us with this stuff. I'm always available to you. So that's the end of my spiel, guys. I appreciate it.
You're going in my database.
Yeah.
I put my question in the chat.
I can't hear you. Is your question in the chat box? Haley, how does probate choose the realtor to list the home if they have no will?
Oh, that's a great question. So,
Hey guys, one more question. Barry, one more question.
so what would happen in that case is generally probate would put the obligation on the administrator or executor to go get an agent to then appraise the property. Probably it would take 2 or 3 agents to state what the value of that property may be without a formal appraisal, right? And so what you would sell the property for. So then in the order itself, it'd say this property is to sell between this amount and this amount.
Hey guys, you're answering a good question right now.
So within that order through the probate court, it would be listed out that the property should sell between this and this, or not less than this amount. And then the, excuse me, and then the commissions would be set out as to who gets what and which agent would get it. So it really dictates down, let's say it's Johnny Jennings is the listing agent, he's going to get 3% of the proceeds of the sale. So if we do it specifically, therefore the administrator or executor would have to follow that template.
So how, I guess like another question, probably a follow-up question is how do you get in contact or how do you reach out to those types of people?
Well, that's interesting. It's the question is, and again, please give me a call if you have other specifics or property and speak really specifically to, it sounds like a real transaction here that she's pertaining to. But is it in probate presently? Is there somebody representing the estate presently? And then the steps would be, okay, if it's not in probate, let's get an attorney, right? The attorney will help drive that bus, and then we can circle back to you. You could be potentially one of those people to help appraise the value of the property. So we can go from there. So that question is very open-ended, but it sounds like there's more details that we can cover offline.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And then any other questions? Can you comment on?
Yeah, Scott, this is Claudia. I wanted to know, don't most probate attorneys have their own realtors they kind of go to?
I wouldn't say most of them. I think some of them might, but what's interesting is that the ones that I work with are very reciprocal, right? I hand them clients based on broken transactions. They hand it back to us, which then we would need theoretically to hand off to a real estate agent, right? So sometimes I work with consumers, then I go, okay, here's EXP, you should work with them because they work with us. So it's, you know, it's all referral based. So great question. Give me a call because then I will call some of my probate attorneys and ask them that very question. And if they have a list of real estate agents, can we get you on that list?
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
All right. Well, with that, everybody give Scott a big round of applause. All right. We'll see you back here next week with Barry's teaching on investors. See you then. Bye online. Thanks for being there.
Bye, thank you.